Kodak invented the future, then buried it in the backyard. In 1975, engineer Steven Sasson walked into a boardroom holding something that weighed 8 pounds and looked like a toaster had a baby with a Walkman. It was the world's first digital camera. The thing was clunky, took 23 seconds to snap a single black and white photo, and could only display images on a TV screen. But it worked. Sasson was excited. He thought he'd just changed photography forever. The executives smiled, nodded, and told him to shut up about it. Kodak wasn't worried about innovation. They were worried about protecting what already worked. Film was printing billions every year. They owned nearly 90% of the US film market and were worth over $31 billion. Digital photography threatened all of that. So they made a choice. Protect the present, ignore the future. They buried it. Then the 1990s hit and Sony, Canon, and Nikon started selling digital cameras to everyone. Kodak finally jumped in way too late. By 2012, they filed for bankruptcy, having lost more than $30 billion in value. They invented the thing that killed them. They were positioned to own the entire digital photography ecosystem. IBM didn't lose computing because they built a bad product. They lost it because of one sentence in 1981. Sure, you can keep the licensing rights. IBM built the personal computer, then handed the keys to a guy in his 20s. On August 12, 1981, IBM launched its first personal computer. To move fast, they outsourced the operating system to a small company called Microsoft. Bill Gates asked for one thing: licensing rights. IBM said yes. Microsoft delivered MS-DOS. Used software they had bought for around $50,000 and tweaked. IBM shipped millions of computers. Microsoft kept the rights. Soon, other companies wanted to make IBM-compatible computers. They needed the same software. Microsoft licensed MS-DOS to all of them. IBM sold the hardware. Microsoft sold the brains inside every machine. By the 1990s, Microsoft didn't just compete in computing, they owned it. IBM built the box. Microsoft controlled what was inside. One contract changed the entire industry. Adidas didn't miss Michael Jordan because they couldn't see his talent. They missed him because they didn't want to take the risk. In 1984, Adidas was the king of sportswear. Soccer was their world. Basketball was just something Americans cared about. When rookie Michael Jordan entered the NBA, his agent went straight to Adidas. Jordan had grown up wearing their shoes. He wanted to sign with them. Adidas listened to the pitch and passed. They didn't want to gamble on an unproven guard from North Carolina. Nike did. They were smaller, hungrier, and desperate to break into basketball. They offered Jordan $500,000 a year for 5 years, his own signature shoe line, and royalties. That kind of deal was unheard of for a rookie. In 1985, the Air Jordan 1 dropped, got banned by the NBA for violating uniform rules, and exploded in popularity because of it. Nike expected maybe $3 million in sales. They made $126 million in the first year. By 2023, Jordan brand was pulling in over $6 billion a year. Adidas didn't just lose Jordan. They walked away from the most profitable athlete endorsement in history because it felt too risky. Turns out, the only risk was saying no. In July 2006, Yahoo was still one of the biggest internet companies in the world. People used Yahoo for email, news, and search every day. Social media was heating up, and they were in talks with a small startup called Facebook. They agreed on a price, $1 billion. Then Yahoo's stock dipped a bit, and CEO Terry Semel got nervous. Right before signing, he tried to lower the offer to $850 million. Mark Zuckerberg, only 22 years old at the time, didn't panic. He walked away. When Yahoo tried to raise the price back, Zuckerberg said it was too late. Yahoo decided to build their own social networks instead. Remember Yahoo Mash? Nobody does. Facebook kept growing. By 2008, it was valued at $15 billion. In 2012, it went public at over $100 billion. Years later, Yahoo itself sold for $4.5 billion. They tried to save $150 million. It turned into one of the most expensive decisions they ever made. AOL and Time Warner thought they were building the future. Instead, they built the biggest corporate disaster in American history. On January 10, 2000, AOL announced a $165 billion merger with Time Warner. The pitch was beautiful. Combine old media and new tech, unite email with movies, cable with the internet. For a moment, Wall Street believed it. The merger became the largest in history. Then reality hit. The dot-com bubble burst. AOL's ad revenue collapsed. Time Warner's media divisions resisted digital change. Executives fought. Strategies clashed. Nothing worked. By 2002, the company reported a $99 billion loss, the single biggest in U.S. corporate history. By 2009, AOL was spun off for almost nothing. If AOL had stayed independent, they had a real shot at becoming the home of streaming and social networks. Instead, they became the textbook example of what not to do. In the late 1980s, Nintendo owned gaming. The Super Nintendo was everywhere. To add CD technology, they partnered with Sony. A Sony executive named Ken Kutaragi had even built the SNES sound chip. the 1991 Consumer Electronics Show, Sony proudly announced the partnership on stage. The next day, Nintendo shocked everyone by publicly dumping Sony and announcing a new deal with Philips instead. Sony executives found out they'd been dumped in front of a crowd. Nintendo worried about losing control of licensing and royalties. The Philips deal went nowhere, but Sony didn't go home and cry. They took the same technology and built their own console. In December 1994, the PlayStation launched in Japan and changed gaming forever. It outsold Nintendo. It defined a generation. Nintendo canceled a partnership and accidentally created the rival that would dominate the industry for decades. That's not a business mistake, that's corporate karma. Blockbuster had the chance to own Netflix for $50 million and laughed them out of the room. In 2000, Netflix was a DVD by mail service losing money and struggling to survive. The founders flew to Dallas and pitched Blockbuster a partnership for $50 million. Blockbuster's CEO took one look and said no. He thought it was ridiculous. Blockbuster had stores everywhere, late fees printing money, and no reason, at least in their mind, to change. Why would they need some website? Netflix went back to California and kept building. They launched streaming in 2007 and changed how people watch TV forever. Blockbuster finally tried their own streaming service, but it was too slow, too late, and too confusing. By 2010, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. Today, there's one Blockbuster left on Earth, and it's a tourist attraction in Oregon. Netflix is worth over $150 billion. Blockbuster could have owned the future for the price of a decent office building. Instead, they're a punchline and a nostalgic meme. Subscribe so you're never the punchline. Nokia ruled the world, then bet everything on the wrong software 3 times. In 2008, Nokia didn't think they could lose. They sold over 400 million phones a year. Smartphones were clearly the future, and Google approached them with an offer: adopt Android. Nokia's CEO said no. He thought their software at Symbian was good enough. It wasn't. Symbian was slow, clunky, and outdated. Market share started bleeding. By 2010, Nokia hired a new CEO who bet everything on Windows Phone. That failed even faster. By 2013, Nokia sold its phone business to Microsoft for $7.2 billion. The company that once owned mobile phones ended up as a footnote. They had the scale, the brand, and the chance to lead the smartphone revolution. All they had to do was say yes to Android. They said no 3 times and disappeared. For most of the 20th century, Sears didn't just sell products. They defined how Americans shopped. They invented mail-order shopping long before the internet existed. In 1997, Amazon went public at $18 a share. Sears barely noticed. By the 1990s, Sears abandoned their catalog and decided malls were the future. Meanwhile, Jeff Bezos kept getting bigger. By 2001, Amazon hit $1 billion in sales. Sears' online store was slow and outdated. In 2005, Amazon launched Prime and changed shopping forever. By 2013, Sears' revenue had dropped more than 40%. In 2018, they filed for bankruptcy. If Sears had embraced e-commerce in the 1990s, they could have competed with Amazon before Amazon dominated. Bayer bought Monsanto for $63 billion and turned their pharmaceutical reputation into a toxic waste dump. In September 2016, Bayer announced they were buying Monsanto, the largest all-cash corporate deal in history. Monsanto dominated agriculture with genetically modified crops and Roundup weed killer, but Monsanto's reputation was already a disaster. Yeah, when courts started linking Roundup to cancer, the backlash exploded. By 2019, Bayer's stock crashed more than 40%, erasing over $30 billion in market value. The company spent billions settling over 100,000 lawsuits. By 2021, the Monsanto name was so toxic they stopped using it entirely. They paid $63 billion to destroy their own brand. If Bayer had walked away in 2016, their name would still mean medicine. Instead, it means Roundup and cancer lawsuits. None of these companies failed because they were stupid. They failed because they protected what worked instead of betting on what was coming. History doesn't punish mistakes. It punishes hesitation.